It was the end of a millennium, a time of death, a time of rebirth. But with the death of Flights of Fantasy, a new show was born, and they called it FOFTV.com.
The show didn't disappear entirely right away. It was rebranded as FOFTV.com and was hosted primarily on their website. That's significant because that would make the show among the first video game-related program transmitted via the internet. Only one episode survives in this format, so saying anything definitive is practically impossible. However, it feels very much the same as the older shows, the major difference being the reviews are much shorter, with a greater number of them being crammed into each episode. No worries though, they're still as bad as ever.
You can't beat a game that offers this many options. We had a lot of fun creating 3 fat black ladies fighting 1 skinny white turd. This is the game that killed the Beanie Babies. Now America's youth is obsessed with Pikachu. Oh, by the way, if Square doesn't add voiceovers to Final Fantasy IX, I'm committing suicide.
To supplement these short video reviews, their website contained a massive compendium of written reviews. These are mostly available to you to read using the Internet Wayback Machine, and anyone who loves George Wood is encouraged to check them out. They're written in the exact same voice as the reviews on the show, and reading them aloud while doing your worst George Wood impression is always fun. Final Fantasy IX is no match for Final Fantasy VIII in terms of characters, cinematic quality, music, and emotion. However, this old-school revamp completely trumps its predecessor in terms of story pacing and clarity. FOFTV.com was off the air by September of 2000. In an interview found on Gazette.net, Tom Allen admitted that Flights of Fantasy was too time-consuming to edit, and that he wanted to focus on creating content that was easier to make. That content would begin airing immediately after Flights of Fantasy ended, and it continued to be tangentially about video games, including one segment that is, by far, the most baffling, uncomfortable thing that George Wood and his crew has ever made. Entitled My Fish Talks to Me, the video is attempting to capitalize on the release of Seaman, which had just been released for the Dreamcast. It's a fake documentary, and you can tell by the self-deprecating humor that it wasn't intended to be taken entirely seriously.
Old guy came up to me and started talking to me about a Seaman. There's so many perverts these days.
That being said, using self-deprecating humor does not shield one's responsibility in producing terrible content, and regardless of how seriously they intended to be taken, they still thought it was a good idea to go to a mall, approach complete strangers, and ask them this.
Excuse me, we need some people for a project that we're doing. Have you ever played with Seaman? It's a new video game. Seaman, have you heard of it? No? Okay, thanks.
Just try watching this entire video without cringing. It is not possible. Their other content was nowhere near this creepy, but it was just as baffling. It was a show called Who Wants to Be a Contestant, an obvious parody of ABC's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which was at the height of its popularity at the time. The show borrows the basic format, lifelines, and catchphrases of Millionaire, but the questions are almost entirely based around video games and movies. Winners received a free video game, and the list of games given away as prizes are actually impressive. They included The Legend of Dragoon, Vagrant Story, and Front Mission 3, to name just a few. Tom Allen described the game as Millionaire on Acid, but watching the number of surviving episodes, it isn't anywhere as weird as his description would seem to suggest.
What is the sequel to Parappa the Rapper? Humjammer Bammy, Jammer Lammy, Fun Jammer Flanny, or Lamb Jammer Panty?
In the proud tradition of public access programming, it's more low budget and desperate than anything else. However, they did produce a number of special themed episodes that were, in the proud tradition of Flights of Fantasy, bizarre and uncomfortable. Those of you who were alive at the time may remember the saga of Elian Gonzalez, the little Cuban boy who was forcibly taken from his relatives' care in Miami to be reunited with his father in Cuba. That debacle must have made quite an impression on George Wood and Tom Allen, because one episode was called Who Wants to Go Back to Cuba? And featured the winners being raided by fake immigration agents as their prize. Another episode was called, I kid you not, Who Wants to See My Derriere? Because, you know, derriere kind of rhymes with millionaire and that's funny and stuff. Anyway, the winner of those episodes gets to go behind a curtain where George Wood shows them his ass. By all accounts, the show was actually popular with Bowie residents. Everyone from senior citizens to teenagers wanted to be on the show. From that, It seemed like the show was set to become a long-running success for Wood and Allen. However, the show would end the very next year, with Tom Allen becoming anathema to most of the staff of BCTV. In 2001, BCTV's City Hall-based studio was undergoing an extensive renovation. During that time, the city of Bowie stepped in and seized control of the studio. That decision, according to reports archived on thegazette.net, was at least partially due to the influence of two former BCTV employees, Jim Travland and Tom Allen. The reports allege that Allen sent a number of threatening emails about BCTV executive director Sandy Bellino. The content of the threat was not made public. However, Allen would later claim in an email conversation with a city employee, "I found an embarrassing personal email written at 6 in the morning involving a ridiculous discussion over sodas. I might as well explain this one right now in case Sandy whips it out to prove mental problems." Bellino fired Allen from the station after that incident. She claimed it was the only serious workplace incident from her 15-year tenure at BCTV. Around the same time, Allen was in email correspondence with Denise Mahoney, a city liaison to BCTV, where he discussed gossip about his former BCTV cohorts, focusing extensively on Bellino. In his emails, Allen calls Bellino a compulsive liar and says her management practices are ineffective and unethical. He suggests that Bellino may be spending too much money on items that aren't tax-exempt, and he complains that Bellino should be paying him at a higher rate for certain work. He also wrote about the hours Bellino worked at the office. 3 to 5 hours a day. Must be nice. Someone should be keeping tabs on her in and out times over an extended period of time. Those emails, it was alleged, were an integral part of the city's decision to take over the studio. This became an ongoing controversy. An internal memo by the city regarding the ongoing management of the station became a point of conflict, with BCTV taking the station to court to make it public. BCTV won the suit, and found the memo arguing that possible violence could occur at the station because of lack of supervision. The city of Bowie cut funding to BCTV as a result, and the station was shut down entirely in August of 2002. In response, former BCTV employees filed a $1.2 million suit against the city, but it was thrown out in court. The station would eventually be reborn as the Bowie Community Media Corporation, or BCMC, but city officials publicly discouraged former BCTV employees from applying, saying their applications would not be heavily considered. So Tom Allen was, in some way, directly responsible in the downfall of the TV station that hosted Flights of Fantasy for so long. Why did he do it? BCTV producer Annette Green theorizes that he's doing this to get back at Sandy because he wants his own studio. He's just brazen enough to do it, and the city is stupid enough to play into his hands. It seems to have worked. Tom has been a studio tech specialist working for the city of Bowie since 2001. It's interesting that in all the drama that played out over BCTV's fate, George Wood's name wasn't mentioned once. Because of that, it's unknown what role, if any, he played in the events. What we do know is that around that same time, he was off starting another project. On January 4th, 2001, NAVGTR, the National Academy of Video Game Testers and Reviewers, was incorporated, and they've been giving out awards for achievement in video games since then. Some have been skeptical regarding the awards, claiming that nominees have to pay to nominate games and winners have to pay to receive their awards, but everything I've seen demonstrates their legitimacy. They've appeared at big-name events like the Penny Arcade Expo, and have gotten voice acting heavyweights like Richard Epcar to speak on their behalf.
I'm Richard Epcar. I'm standing in for the president of the Academy because we don't have enough actors taking the glory away from the game developers in this industry.
George Wood, of course, can't run an organization like NAVGTR alone. An archived version of their website from 2003 preserves this quote from their executive director. Dedicated members of the industry and members of the press are stepping forward to recognize the video game achievements that you don't hear about on the evening news' entertainment report. Our mission is to bring awareness to this industry so that the public understands the limitless artistry that can come from this interactive medium. Video games are an art form, and our unique award categories reflect just how far that art has come. That executive director is none other than Tom Allen. It's reassuring to know that even if his shenanigans at BCTV hadn't ended in his favor, he'd still have a job thanks to George Wood. Now, concerning the actual awards themselves, we actually have footage of 2 ceremonies that are publicly available, the 2004 and 2005 awards. Both ceremonies feature Wood as MC, along with another man named Don Risher. Information on Risher is scarce, although this video demonstrates that he and Wood were acquainted in 2000 when Wood was still hosting his game show on BCTV. If anyone was worried that he would lose his touch after Flights of Fantasy, have no fear. Both him and Risher are so very awkward.
I know many of you out there used to be able to make your favorite video game character jump, fire a weapon, and even score chicks so you don't have to. But I'm not your favorite video game character. And tonight, these guys and girls are getting the night off.
As if directed by Peter Jackson, the game featured the brutal slaughtering of mindless blue orcs and the genocidal drowning of hundreds of blood-red Uruk-hai. Actually, in truth, the game has nothing to do with The Lord of the Rings.
Great to see that the inappropriate analogies and awkward stage presence haven't gone anywhere. Aside from that, the awards are actually pretty typical. It's mostly just the 2 men on stage and an unnamed female announcer reading the nominations. Pretty down to earth for something George Wood is involved in. Although they did try to spice things up in the 2005 ceremony with predictable results.
Year? What the heck are they doing? It looks like a mating dance or something. Sex at a kid's game? Uh-oh.
Actually, Don, what award show would be complete without a sex montage? The Oscars have the Brokeback Cowboy montage, and we have our Brokeback Pandas.
Well, aren't you the busy little beaver? Let the mating begin. Oh, that feels good.
Oh yeah!
Imagine this going on for 5 minutes. Anyway, later in the show, Wood shows a, quote, hilarious, unquote, fan-made video by Harold Rodriguez. So not only is the video not that funny, but why the hell did they think it was a good idea to essentially point the camera at the screen and film, like this was their Sonic the Hedgehog review all over again? I mean, they've already shown that they can cut away to other footage in this same video. Why don't they do it here when they need to do it the most? Anyway, the next year, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is when Wood created NAVGTR's YouTube account and began posting the Gaming in the Clinton Years videos. But, as I also mentioned, their method of posting these videos made their context far from clear for most people who watch them. So let's go back to that terse description left on their playlist. As you may recall, it says that the opinions expressed in Gaming in the Clinton Years don't represent those of NAVGTR, instead expressing the original third-party 90s writers. When these videos were posted, the descriptions made it seem like NAVGTR found these videos in some sort of vault, got control of them, and posted them on YouTube for the sake of posterity. Of course, the story's nonsense since NAVGTR was run by George Wood and Tom Allen, so what's the real story here? In the episode of The Wealthy Speaker Show featuring Wood and Allen, they explained that Gaming in the Clinton Years was basically a gimmicky way to repackage old content, and that it was primarily a marketing thing. It appears as though the 2 men saw the humor in the videos and decided that posting them on the internet would be a good way to bring attention to NAVGTR. While I appreciate the fact that they seem to see the absurdity in their old content, the fact that they concocted this counter-narrative where NAVGTR found and posted the tapes betrays a greater, ingrown sense of embarrassment about the whole thing. At the same time, this kind of self-deprecating humor is less than effective if the content they're creating now is barely of a higher quality than what they were doing in the 90s. Regardless, they were right in that the videos did manage to bring a lot of attention to NAVGTR, but I'm not sure how successful they were in the long run. I mean, most people know NAVGTR is the channel that posts Gaming in the Clinton Years, while know nothing whatsoever about the awards that they give out. Indeed, this comment from Phoneros sums up the attitudes of more than a fair amount of viewers. What the fuck happened to this channel? While confusion continued to mount around NAVGTR, little was anyone aware that George Wood was hard at work creating another company, Avatoy. The name, according to The Wealthy Speaker Show, is a multi-level pun meant to reference both the word avatar as well as a Cockney way of saying Avatoy, like Avatoy. I know, it's hilarious. As their very primitive website describes, Avatoy is a private, for-stock corporation working closely with other portfolio companies to create strategic alliances and compelling, live, location-based, interactive special entertainment events with high publicity value for clients, charities, partners, and sponsors. Basically, they plan events, with the goal, to quote Wood's appearance on the Wealthy Speaker Show, being to prove to the public that gaming is not a four-letter word. The big event Avatoy seems to have focused on was a massive video game and Navigator-themed cruise. Set to take place in November of 2008, the cruise was set to feature an impressive number of guests, including the Hardcore Granny and a performance by Video Games Live. Most interestingly, the guest of honor was to be Cloris Leachman, the legendary actress who's been in everything from The Mary Tyler Moore Show to Malcolm in the Middle to Scary Movie 4. The schedule is still on their website, and it features a number of contests for games like Guitar Hero and Brain Age, tryouts for the Wii, and a game show hosted by Cloris Leachman herself. This all sounds very impressive, but here's the thing. I don't think this cruise ever happened. If you do a Google search, you can find old press releases everywhere from GameSutra to IGN, but there's absolutely no indication that it actually took place. Even if you look at the archive of live performances for Video Games Live, there's no record of them having a performance on the dates given during the cruise. And what about Cloris Leachman? That's the weirdest thing about this whole story. It does seem that Avatoy got in contact with Leachman at some point. This can be proven by going on Avatoy's YouTube channel, Avatoy Media. The channel seems to have unlisted their videos. If you search Avatoy, it doesn't bring anything up, and even doing a search for Avatoy Media only brings up one result, and tellingly, it's a compilation of Gaming the Clinton Years videos. Only 4 people are currently subscribed to the channel, myself being one of them, of course, and their only videos are contained within a series of bizarrely titled playlists. One of them, called Embargo Order, features video of Leachman and Wood playing games on the Wii. So they obviously know each other, but was this taken on the cruise? The video was published in 2010, 2 years after the cruise was supposed to have taken place, so that tells us nothing. That leads me to conclude that, as legitimate as it may have seemed at the time, there's no actual proof that the Navigator cruise ever happened. I know, it's bizarre, but until someone finds me evidence proving the contrary, I'm going to continue to believe that it's all fiction. That out of the way, let's take a minute to appreciate some of the videos from Avatoy's YouTube page. Though they were all posted in the early 2010s, they were filmed years earlier, and helped to fill in the gaps concerning what else George was up to in the mid to late 2000s. One of the playlists, called Toying Around, is an archive of a game show of the same name hosted by Wood in 2005. This shows that Wood and Allen somehow made it back onto Bowie Public Access even after Tom Allen's controversy earlier in the decade. Toying Around is much more basic than their previous game show. Contestants gather around a bell and are read a series of related words or phrases by Wood. Whoever can buzz in first and name the common thread tying all the words together gets a point. Whoever gets the most points gets rewarded by playing a game on the iToy. The rest of the videos on Avatoy's YouTube consists of short videos of people playing iToy games and more videos of Cloris Leachman, including this bizarre parody of Geico commercials.
George Wood is not a celebrity, so we hired one to help him tell his story.
Last night, I came home totally exhausted from a long tennis match. My wife complained I never get sweaty over her.
So I whipped out my Wii and served her my ball so fast she knew I'd been practicing.
Because the videos are unlisted, these bizarre escapades from George Wood and company have, until now, been buried for most people. However, there was enough insanity going on at Navigator's main page to keep viewers captivated for years. On June 20th, 2009, Navigator posted a video called Bloopers before the inevitable Let's Play commentary. This shows that Navigator was well aware of the reaction their videos were receiving. The video itself features a disheveled Don Risher wearing what seems to be a bad Tommy Wiseau wig, saying a bunch of bizarre things.
Because it's like, you know, if you
The joke is always, is that a banana in your pocket?
Yeah, are you happy to see me? Or is that a banana in your pocket? Yeah, so it has to be pocket.
Okay, all right. Yes, folks, There is a we in Woods.
To call these scenes bloopers isn't really accurate, since they're not technically outtakes of anything. It's more of a behind-the-scenes video. But no video on NAVGTR's channel corresponded whatsoever to its contents. It would take a month and a half before any sort of answers could be gleaned. On August 5th, NAVGTR posted their next video, titled Tribute to George Wood, and it's easily in the running for the most bizarre thing that channel has ever done. It features Wood, behind a green screen, wearing a tuxedo and sporting ludicrously pink dyed hair, playing with a Wiimote. He then bursts out into this.
Good evening, I'm George Wood. Or, are you watching in the morning? If so, that makes me your morning Wood, with an overactive Wii.
I mean, that's just horrifying, but it does conclusively put the banana in your pocket conversation from the previous video in context, all things considered. Much of the video features Wood rehearsing what appears to be material for an upcoming NAGVTR Awards ceremony before dropping a huge bombshell, a message simply reading, George Wood, 1955-2006. Yes, NAGVTR had revealed that George Wood, the man the internet loved to hate, had been dead since 2006. 3 years before the video was posted and the same year they had begun uploading gaming in the Clinton years. Now, as should be more than clear from watching this video, George wasn't dead. To give a few examples, we've constantly been referring to an interview he did for the Wealthy Speaker Show, which was recorded in 2008. There's also Avatoy, which began most of its activity after Wood's supposed death. But these resources weren't, and still aren't, easily accessible, and so most people thought that his death was legitimate. However, a sizable segment of NAVGTR viewers were skeptical, and it didn't take long for the community to find proof that the death claims were nonsensical. The video passed around the internet as proof was an excerpt of a political-themed BCMC talk show where Wood appeared as a guest, talking about the recent inauguration of President Barack Obama, which of course happened in 2009. Even with Wood's death now easily refuted, NAVGTR kept running with it for an embarrassingly long time. They posted a tribute song.
Goodbye, George Wood. Well, you just a puppet over me. You always said you lost your way, but you never lost your facts.
Then they posted a series of videos where his body, which was really just a cheap puppet, is exhumed from the grave, takes a shower, and is beaten senseless by a little kid. All this weirdness culminated in, and you are not going to believe this, another cruise. In 2010, NAVGTR announced C3 at Sea, a cruise scheduled for October 29th through November 3rd, 2011. C3 stands for Cosplay Caucus Cruise. The cruise was explicitly both video game and cosplay themed, and the press release advertised a massive cosplay competition, as well as NAVGTR's Game of the Decade ceremony. The press release also described a, quote, roast of infamous Gaming in the Clinton years narrator George Wood, whose friends and family will reflect on the surprising endurance of his much-debated work, unquote. In addition to the George Wood roast, if one watches the trailer video, it's implied that his ghost is going to be haunting the ship. Again, there's no proof that this cruise, like the last one, ever happened. In this instance, it's not hard to conclude that C3 was a hoax. The press release says that $100 from every ticket sold would be donated to Susan G. Komen for the Cure, a well-known breast cancer awareness group. Breast cancer, of course, being the disease that George Wood wished IDOS would give to Lara Croft in Tomb Raider 3. What makes these cruise stories even stranger is that in August of 2017, NAVGTR posted a news story on their website entitled Gamer Cruise Controversy. The story reads, quote, the Coalition has been reporting on controversy surrounding a video game cruise known as Gamer Tech Events, CruiseCon, and Gamer Gauntlet. Varying reports attribute booking systems such as Cvent, Eventbrite, and PayPal used to take unfulfilled orders rather than actual ticket sales, leading to a refunds investigation by an alleged ESPN contributor. Due to large upfront deposits and attrition schedules of charters, which usually require a travel agency to provide third-party booking rather than direct sales from the cruise line, a video game cruise would require substantial investment, unquote. This seems like some sort of bizarre meta-commentary on their own actions, but for what end I'm not entirely sure. In light of the evidence, George Wood's fake death, the cruise, and everything surrounding it seems to be, like posting Gaming in the Clinton years, primarily a marketing thing. However, like with gaming in the Clinton years, I don't know how successful it's been. Most viewers don't seem to know or care about NAVGTR as an organization, and instead are primarily just fixated on George Wood and how bizarre their content is. And bizarre is what their content continued to be. Videos regarding C3 quietly stopped, and by 2012, several new Gaming in the Clinton Years related series appeared. The first was Retro Hate Mail. In this series, after playing a brief clip of one of Wood's reviews, an old man wearing a cheap crown calling himself Charles the Brit reads actual viewer comments regarding the review in question.
40,000. The slow controls were terrible, you don't do research and you call yourself a journalist. Do your job. You should have just showed Tifa's front-loaded anvils like your contender review to make it better.
The second, much more ambitious series was Reviews. This was meant to be a countdown of the top 100 reviews from Gaming in the Clinton Years, and it was hosted, unbelievably, by Tom Sizemore, the actor famous for his roles in Natural Born Killers, Saving Private Ryan, and Black Hawk Down. No word on how NAVGTR got him to take part in this, but as the Cloris Leachman videos prove, they know how to get it done. Reviews has to be the laziest and most disappointing series of videos ever posted on NAVGTR's channel. Though advertised as a countdown show, the videos in question are no more than the original Gaming in the Clinton Years segments played in their entirety. The reviews themselves take up only half the screen, because NAVGTR felt the need to take up the entire other half of the screen with the number of where it appears on the countdown. And what about Tom Sizemore? Though described as the host, he only appears at the very end of each video, often for less than 10 seconds, saying complete non-sequiturs.
NAVGTR, you suck. Dry balls.
Thankfully, the videos didn't last. Only entries 100 through 90 ever appeared. Aside from these series, a number of George Wood-related one-off videos appeared from time to time, the funniest, in my opinion, being Gaming in the Obama Years, a compilation of George Wood-style reviews for modern games.
Donkey Kong Country returns. Good game, but we've been there, done that. Also, without Candy Kong's sexy anvil, how are we supposed to be inspired to play this? Excite Truck. The only thing exciting about this is how I know Nintendo fans will probably grow up to be truck drivers. Fire Emblem. I saw gay porn of this once. Yep, that's definitely gay.
Another much more obnoxious video features Kyle Irvin, a marketing and PR specialist for NAVGTR, singing songs about Wood.
And my voice speaks on all behalf of all of you preview best teens out there that love their old Georgia Woody. Alright, now let's get some of this old video gamer music.
His fake, obnoxious accent makes him exceedingly punchable. But of course, what viewers really wanted was the real George Wood, and in April of 2015, seemingly out of nowhere, NAVGTR brought him back. The video in question is called Official Resurrection of George Wood, and features our favorite video game reviewer, now with a striking head of white hair, playing games while being berated by Kyle Irvin, this time talking like the douchiest bro on the planet.
George, alright, now you got, move, there, now you got some control. You like that power behind it? No! The mushrooms are not your friends. I know that back home, shrooms are friendly, and you go out and pick them in your garden, but these shrooms are evil.
Oh, okay.
Evil little bastards. They don't get you high.
Again, there's little context here, but it seems like Irvin is trying to be like Duke Nukem, and his bizarre spectacle comes to a head during a segment where he laments that he's no longer allowed to make dick jokes because of Gamergate.
And all this juvenile, boyish crap. Can't release this video in the American market with all the Gamergate awareness. It's not just sexism, it's... What?
Does this Gamergate mean I can never tell a dick joke again?
You can't do it.
It's obvious that this isn't meant to be taken seriously, but what is the overall point he's trying to make here? Again, we're all left just confused and baffled. Irvin, unfortunately, makes his mark on nearly all the new George Wood-themed videos, and his presence nearly brings them down entirely.
One of your biggest fans. I've got some interview questions for you today, and first off, I'd like to ask you, what do you have such a raging hard-on for Donkey Kong Country?
Why don't you talk? At the time,
George, Why are you talking up a review 1 minute and then bashing it the next?
Seriously, stop talking for 1 goddamn second and let George have the floor. As of this writing, the last video featuring George Wood is a nearly 30-minute epic called Make Your Own George Wood Review. Here, George says a number of Gaming in the Clinton Years related words with the hope, I'm guessing, of people combining them together to make their own review.
Animals. Animals. Annoying. Annoying. Apocalyptic. Apocalyptic. Arsehole. Arsehole. Ass. Asshole. Asshole.
To the best of my knowledge, nobody has actually done this, but the fact that the resources exist is pretty wonderful. Like I said, that's the last video featuring George Wood to be posted, and that was from April of 2015. It's now 2018, so what are all of our Gaming in the Clinton Years friends doing now? NAVGTR's YouTube channel still exists and still posts videos semi-regularly, most of them being footage from their appearances at conventions. Avatoy's YouTube channel still exists too, but remains at 4 subscribers with no new videos being uploaded since 2011. Mike Groves started a company called Virtual Sports in 2000 to organize and plan esports tournaments. The company does not seem to still be in operation and his current activities are unknown. Don Risher's current activities are also unknown. One can only assume that he's still making awkward award show appearances. Even at 91 years old, Cloris Leachman is still appearing in movies and TV shows. She appeared as Zoria in Starz' adaptation of American Gods in 2017. Tom Sizemore played Anthony Sinclair on the new season of Twin Peaks in 2017. That same year, he pleaded no contest to 2 charges of domestic abuse for assaulting his girlfriend. Kyle Irvin left NAVGTR in 2016 and is currently the marketing manager of Pioneer Bank of Harrisburg, Virginia. Tom Allen maintains his leadership positions at both NAVGTR and Avatoy, and is also a lifetime member of the International Game Developers Association. He occasionally posts on the Avatoy website, which he currently uses, for the looks of it, as his personal diary. The website is a fascinating look inside his mind, with entries ranging from grandiose plans to new web content, news articles on the poor taxpayers, and this article that simply says, Themes, Intergenerational Conflict, Schizophrenia, Saggy Boobs. All are strongly encouraged to read it at your own leisure. He also has an Amazon Studios account, where 2 of his screenplays, The Brightest and Citizen Hussein, are available for free. George Wood also maintains his leadership positions at NAVGTR and Avatoy. Though he's been off camera for nearly 3 years, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before he returns. So, there you have it. From humble beginnings on an obscure Maryland public access channel, Gaming in the Clinton Years has a nearly quarter-century history behind it. It serves, in many different ways, as a monument to how awful video game criticism can be, a monument to idiosyncratic marketing, a monument to the insanity of its creators, and a monument to the internet's power to preserve and spread content that, by any sane logic, should have been forgotten years ago. I don't know what Wood and Allen's next moves are, but the fact that they've been able to, in some form or fashion, keep their content relevant for 25 years is, regardless of its quality, astonishing. Whatever they decide to do, they will never lose me as a viewer, despite how confused or horrified I may be.